Okay, and welcome to tonight's May 2023's formal cabinet meeting, which I will begin. My name is Stephen Cowan, the leader of the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham, and I would like to introduce my team, which I'll do shortly. For the members of the public, hello, David. I would like to remind you that the toilets are that way and the fire alarm goes, and it's always head that way, and you will be guided to safety down the fire exit. Can we start with the person on my far right over here to introduce yourself, and we'll work our way around the cabinet table for formal members of the cabinet.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowan Ree, Cabinet Member for Finance and Reform.
I'm Councillor Boraquan, Cabinet Member for Civic Renewal.
Hello, Councillor Andrew Jones. I'm Cabinet Member for the Economy.
Hello, I'm Councillor Rebecca Harvey, Cabinet Member for Social Inclusion and Community Safety.
Hello, I'm Ben Coleman, Deputy Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member for Health and Adult Social Care.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Alex Anderson. I'm the Cabinet Member for Children and Education.
Hello, Councillor Francis Ume, the Cabinet Member for Housing and Homelessness.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Wesley Harcourt, Cabinet Member for Climate Change and Ecology.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Sharon Holder, Cabinet Member for Public Realm.
Okay, I can see that we're joined by Councillor Quigley, Patricia Quigley, who's online. Hello, Patricia. Don't worry, don't have a sound on.
Hi, Steve. Sorry, I was muted for. So,
of course,
hi.
Of course. And then we have a member of the opposition here, Councillor Adroni Alford. Good evening. Right, that then takes us to also the pleasant news that we have our very own Sharon Lee, the Interim Chief Executive here, also supported by Grant Degg, who is the Assistant Director of Legal Services. Can I therefore now begin to get into the body of the meeting and move to item number 1, which is the minutes. Are there any comments from the minutes? All the minutes agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Are there any apologies for absence? I can't see anyone who's not here, so I guess not. Okay, none. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay, none. Item number 4 then, community equipment and assistive technology contract. That's over to you, Councillor Coleman.
Thank you. This is a contract to purchase community equipment and assistive technology for residents which need this. The NHS and the council split this about 60-40 NHS, 40% council. And the proposal here is that we extend an agreement we have with an existing consortium, which represents 20 councils, does the monitoring, the quality assurance and the pricing and so on behalf of 20 councils. And we recommend staying with them for another 5 years with the option of staying a further 2 years after that.
Are there any questions to Ben? In that case, is the item agreed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. If we move on then to the procurement contract for unattended CCTV camera system, Councillor Holder.
Sorry, this is simply a report on the renewal of a contract that we've previously had, as the contract is now up.
Right. Are there any questions about that contract? This paper?
Sorry. This is the CCTV contract.
Yes.
Can I just place on record, partly as a resident, but also as a councillor, I have concerns about sort of unsupervised CCTV. It does rather sound a bit like, I'm not sure which politically correct statement I can make. If I was to say 1984, would that be, you know?
But when that was
highly,
I was a young man then.
Yes, I know you were. But I'm talking about actually the book, this over.
No, I know, yes.
The over supervision of our residents. I understand some of the reasoning for it, but I am deeply concerned and talking to my fellow residents about the invasiveness of it. And, you know, is it going to be sort of, I gather I can't say this. When I use this, I'm using it in inverted college columns, do you understand? A police state, that people, whatever they're doing, are being monitored. That does worry me.
Well, thank you, Councillor Altham, for raising that point. I can assure you that I too share your liberal views that people should be free in a liberal society to be what they want and who they are, and that privacy is a very important thing. I say that knowing that I've got my cell phone on me, and there's people in California know exactly where I am at all times, and there's people in Sainsbury's and Waitrose who know exactly what I've bought and therefore could discern my lifestyle. So it's an ever more challenging issue, privacy, but I accept that that is a very sensitive thing. I think the counterpoint is this: we live in the most challenging of times. There is huge organised crime. County lines gangs are more effective than they have ever been. There's not a resident when we meet residents who, in any single street, who does not at some point raise a question about some level of crime. There is drug dealing on our streets, sometimes not tackled. And every time drugs are sold, and I say this to everyone who might be tempted to buy them, there's about 230 crimes as a consequence of each gram of crack cocaine that's sold. Now that is big business. And then there's a whole bunch of other crime as well. So I think a society's first obligation is to keep people safe. And I can tell you that the best way people get to punished and caught is by CCTV. In fact, if you look at the criminal prosecutions, nearly all of them are because they are on CCTV. And we haven't got into talking about terrorism. It's only a few years ago that there was an attack on Parsons Green in our borough. I've seen the video briefings of the attacker, and I saw them because they were on CCTV. The reason we were able to get that person and catch them so quickly is because Hammersmith and Fulham has the most extensive CCTV network in the country. So I think it's about balance, and I think getting that right is important. And there does need to be checks and balances within the democratic system that make sure that there can never be a 1984 Big Brother state. But that said, we have to keep people safe, and I think this is exactly. So I make no apology for this. I'm very proud that we do more than any other council in Britain to keep people safe with our law enforcement team, our gangs unit, our CCTV, and a very comprehensive approach to catching criminals and making sure that they do not do any harm.
Come back with one.
Certainly, yeah.
Yes, I appreciate everything you're saying, and on crime, I happen to agree with you 100%. So. If that's not, and we have to protect with terrorism and all the drug dealing, absolutely. What I'm a little worried about is, and I without becoming too controversial, that it isn't used totally to target the motorist and the people who are. Yes, I mean we want motorists to behave the rules, but not for it to become a cash cow for penalising motorists. If that's what I'm a little concerned about.
Yes, no, I can absolutely give you an assurance. We're not in the business of penalising motorists through or creating cash cows. That's not only the wrong thing to do morally; it's also unlawful. So we would never do that. Okay. Clearly, there are a whole bunch of other challenges that the council has to face, but and one of them is on how you keep our environment safe and clean, and that's a slightly different thing to what we've just been talking about. All right, thank you. Is there any more questions on this issue? All right, is that item agreed? Right, in that case, we move on to the very happy news on Farm Lane that we are building a passive houses. Andrew, would you like to introduce the paper, please?
I would, thank you very much. So this is the first of two schemes here for affordable housing tonight. The proposal is to take forward a scheme of 31 new homes in Fulham Broadway, which is where Farm Lane is. The site is a building that hasn't been used for some time, which was acquired by the council when the West Ken Gibbs Green estates were returned after they were saved from demolition. There's several things that are notable. The leader mentioned this will be built to passive house standards. So that's an 80% reduction of emissions in the construction phase. And these are very much green homes. Importantly, 52% at the moment in the scheme as brought before you today are affordable homes, with actually nearly 2/3 of those for families, which is an important element. A further thing to note is it's our ambition always to increase the number of genuinely affordable homes in these schemes. So there remains the option subsequently on this scheme, and indeed the one I'll talk about next, to increase the number of that, to increase that proportion from 52% to higher using other forms of subsidy. But for the purposes of this approval, the scheme as it stands has 52% affordable, genuinely affordable homes, and also other 31 house scheme overall.
Well, that is very good news. Any questions on it? Or comments? I would, you know, all I would say is what people forget about this particular site is it was sold as part of the West Kent and Gibbs Green estates, and they were sold for £100 million. Now, I can tell you £100 million sounds like a hell of a lot of money to us because it is in its own right. But it's not when you sell vast amounts of land in the third highest land value area in Britain, which is what Hammersmith and Fulham is. So, you know, when people talk about why did you want the estates back, why did you want the land back, it wasn't just because it was morally right to get people's houses back that would never have been replaced. It was also, from a business point of view, absolutely the right thing to do, because this was possibly the worst land deal ever done in post-war period Britain by any government agency. And we should never let people forget that that's what happened in 2013 when that land was sold at such a knockdown price. In fact, we've got it back and we're building passive house standard homes that are going to be well above the standards for protecting the environment and dealing with carbon emissions is something that I think we should be very proud of. So I'd just like to say well done, Andrew. Okay, is that item agreed? Thank you very much. And similarly then, although I can tell you this land was also sold, wasn't it? Same deal. This land was also sold on item number 7 as part of the West Kent and Gibbs Green estates for the knockdown price of £104 million. What are we doing with it now on item number 7, Andrew?
So, variations on the theme. Another site which was indeed part of the West Kent and Gibbs Green site, which is the site of the old tenants hall and a disused nursery. Yeah. We are rebuilding again with passive house standards 42 new homes, which will reduce construction in emissions by 71%. Half of those in the scheme as proposed at the moment are genuinely affordable. And we've done this working closely in co-production terms with the residents and on the West Kensington and Gibbs Green estate. We will also re-provide the tenants hall as part of the scheme. Again, I should emphasize that the ambition is to increase the proportion from around 50% to a higher figure of the homes that are genuinely affordable, but we do that at a later stage where subsidy becomes available. So a similar scheme, another 42 new homes on the Lily Road.
Great. Well, you've heard that wonderful news. Again, I stress, Bora, did you want to come in?
I'm sure you could all hear me without my microphone, is the thought of these heat pumps. They don't seem to be getting a very good write-up about not being heating up properties. The bits that I've been reading about and hearing about. I'm only saying that if we put these heat pumps in, can we please ensure that we heat our homes? Because it would be a complete waste of time, money, energy, and everything if we put a scheme in and it doesn't work. So I hope that when it's been commissioned, it's checked that these things actually do work. And the other thing is, which was unfortunate, was I noticed on Nextdoor, which I have views on, but we won't mention that, the negative comments about what is actually a fairly decent scheme. And I think the council, we as councillors, are failing perhaps to explain certain things. And there is this negative reaction because it doesn't help anybody if you keep on having adverse comments, inaccurate ones on Nextdoor.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right to raise both those points. I can assure you we're on it. I mean, a lot of these technologies are new and emerging. Instead of gas boilers, using heat pumps is a very different way of doing things. So so we are actually monitoring that very, very carefully and making sure we get the best and the most reliable. And of course, we'll we'll manage that accordingly. I also agree with what I think you were saying about next door, and I can only assure you that if we followed everything that we were told to do on next door, we'd be in a great deal of trouble. I think the most, there's a large silent majority of people out there who think that we should be building affordable homes for Londoners to live in, that those homes should be for people who are going to contribute, and that those homes should be passive house standards so that we're protecting the environment. I think that's where the majority of people are, and that's why I think this is not only a great scheme and sensible scheme, it's a scheme that makes, charts a way forward for us.
Well, it's unutilized land and we should be utilizing it.
Absolutely. Well, on that note of agreement, I will close that item and ask, is there any questions on this? Any showers of words you want to utter?
No, I think it's a good scheme, and I think it was helpful to hear a response to those useful questions.
Yes. Okay, great. Well, is that agreed? And can I just thank Matt Rumble for some fantastic work, the officer on this project. It really is a very imaginative and clever scheme. And I do think, make sure that Sharon, you pass that down to Matt when you next see him. All right, in that case now, we move on to the forward plan of key decisions there to be noted. And that brings us to the close of the meeting. If you've tuned in, then thank you for doing so. And thank you to everybody here for attending. Good night.